I'm Chef John Folse. Food is so much more than nutrition here in the South. Every weekend on Louisiana's back roads and bayous, our festivals celebrate the food, music, and cultures that make us unique. Why not join me as we visit the fairs and festivals of our state and cook up another great taste of Louisiana?
Funding for this program is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Vieux Carré, Zydeco, Atchafalaya, Natchitoches. In Louisiana, you'll say things you've never seen before.
The town of Gaydon is located about 1 hour southwest of Lafayette, Louisiana, and is named in honor of the Frenchman Henry Gaydon. This little bitty Cajun village of 2,500 would have probably gone virtually unnoticed had it not been for the millions of migratory game birds that come to roost here each winter, and of course the thousands of hunters in hot pursuit. The last weekend of August each year, there's a festival named in honor of those game birds. Why not come to the end of the street and let's visit the Gaydon Duck Festival? Held the last weekend in August each year, the event celebrates a unique land, its people and their customs, and of course, ducks and other game birds. In addition to duck and goose calling contests, there are national dog trials, skeet shooting, outdoor cooking, good Cajun music, and many other activities associated with outdoor festivals. The duck callers entering the contest range in age from very young to their grandfathers. They compete in several categories and are judged on the quality and accuracy of their sounds by three great experts on the subject of duck calling. An outdoor cooking contest is held in conjunction with the festival, and here Donna Thibodeau and Jennifer Hebert serve up a sample of their shrimp sauce pecan. I make a great one, but I have to admit that I think theirs is the best I've ever tasted. As interesting as the food served here is the wide array of cooking implements used in the competition. Greg Guirard gave me a quick demonstration on the virtues of his GI field range purchased from a local Army surplus store. This heavy stainless steel braising pot is excellent when preparing ducks for a crowd, and that's exactly what's simmering here today. Greg cooked his famous pot-roasted teals for about 3 hours, and then he was good enough to give me the recipe to share with all of you here on the show today. Boy, what a good-tasting duck that was. As you know, I'm a real fan of antique cast-iron cookware, and so is David Boone, Jr., who lives here in the Gaydon area. His old 12-quart Dutch oven is about 100 years old and is filled with a simmering stew of duck, Cornish game hen, and tasso. The Spanish-style ham gives this stew a real spicy flavor and a taste that is unique to this far-off corner of Acadiana. What a taste that tasso gives. Every now and then a new dish crops up in Bayou Country, and Emery Broussard's goose and dried shrimp jambalaya was a good example. There's as many recipes for teal duck as there are cooks in Louisiana. I think teal, because of its size, is the best duck for roasting, and so does Percy Petrie. Percy quarters his duck first and then simmers it in wild game stock. That's his secret. The husband and wife team of Greg and Darlene Dupree cooked up their recipe for seafood sauce pecan. 5 local judges were assigned the task of sampling the entries and coming up with the grand champion, and I guess Percy Petrie was right because his teal ducks won the grand prize. He took the trophy home that night. Walking the festival grounds, we were entertained by the music of Decoy Adams, a famous accordion player from that area. Well, this is the Duck Festival, and it would be incomplete without a decoy carving demonstration. Roger Filoreese, representing the Cajun Heritage Festival, was on hand to give us a lesson on the intricacies of hand carving. The details associated with this art form are incredible, down to the very tiny pin feathers. Here, Roger carves a little cocktail decoy. It fits right in the palm of his hand. Look at the size of that thing. Retrieving is a very big part of duck hunting, and Labrador retrievers have been trained for years by Ernie Eastry of Big E Kennels near Gueydan. Buster, his 4-year-old black lab, has been named grand champion twice already, including this year's trial. This festival ensures a fun-filled weekend deep in the heart of Cajun country, and you should definitely make it a part of your annual outdoor activities. If you look at the license plate on any automobile from Louisiana, you see a little motto across the top. It says Sportsman's Paradise. And I guarantee you that's exactly what we are here in ducks. Naturally, we have a duck festival. Ducks play a major part in the history of cooking here in Louisiana. It seems that there's a story that goes way back to the 1780s when the Cajuns first arrived here in Louisiana, that they had such a love for mallard ducks because when they arrived in Nova Scotia or Acadie, from France, they were taught how to go out into the wilderness and pick up some of those mallards and Canadian geese, and it was because of that wild game that they were able to survive in a very hostile area of Nova Scotia back in the early 1600s. When they were exiled to Louisiana in the 1750s and arrived here in the 1785s, what did they find in the swamplands of Louisiana? Mallard ducks and Canadian geese, and took it as an omen that this was the perfect land for them. And ever since that day, we've been quite happy here in the bayous of Louisiana. Well, we're going to do a lot of duck dishes today, and I have a very special guest coming into the kitchen with me, Greg Guirard, who's a photographer, a teacher. He does a lot of work in the Atchafalaya Basin, which is a strange-sounding name for some of you, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, we're going to cook ducks. Now, when you think about ducks, the most sought-after ducks in Europe after the settling of the United States was the American mallard. Everybody wanted to get their hands on it because people were writing stories about it. But the earliest ducks domesticated were in China, and even the Romans and the Greeks domesticated ducks. But in Louisiana, there was no need for it. We could go out into the woodlands, out into the swamps, and all the ducks in the world were right there for us to harvest whenever we wanted them. There was no need to really domesticate them. So instead, we domesticated pigs and chickens and all of that. Ducks were there whenever we needed it. Take a look at my little platter here. I have 2 mallard ducks and a little teal. I really like the teal duck because I think they are some of the best ducks in the world. But the mallard ducks are the ones that are so sought after. And of course, you can tell that these are wild. In fact, a hunter friend of mine actually went out and got these and brought them to me. And when duck season opens, there's so much of these ducks, we're able to pot roast them. And I'm going to use that same recipe you saw just a minute ago to pot roast the ducks. I'm going to start off by seasoning the inside of the duck with a little pepper, just a little touch of salt. And I'm going to do that with both of these ducks because the mallards need a lot of seasoning on the inside because this is a bonish structure in there. This is the skeleton of the duck, obviously, down inside, so that seasoning won't actually come through to the whole duck. I'm going to put a little touch of Worcestershire on the outside. I'm going to put a little bit on the inside, a little bit pepper sauce. Again, you can see that your imagination can just basically run wild as you're seasoning these great wild ducks. They have such a wonderful flavor. Put a little bit of that Louisiana pepper sauce on. Then, of course, I'm going to add some herbs. This is thyme, basil, again, whatever you would like. A lot of the Cajuns stay away from herbs and just use the onion, celery, bell pepper, a wild fruit that grows all over the bayou country. Now, once that's done, we're going to pot roast them. So I have my black iron pot here, and you saw that black iron pot just a second ago. 200 years old. Well, mine I don't think is 200 years old, but it's pretty close. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in here. And then I'm going to take my ducks and I'm going to put them breast side down right into this skillet. You can hear that sizzling because it is pretty warm there. And what you want to do is to basically let these ducks sear really nicely on the breast side and slowly turn them until they're golden brown on all sides. The important thing about game is that you want to sear it so that the juices will remain inside of the meat. Remember, there's not a lot of marbling here. There's not a lot of fat. These ducks are very lean, so you want to kind of slow braise them, so to speak, to keep that moisture in. But go ahead and brown them nicely first. And once, let's assume that this is starting to brown. As you can see, it is very quickly. Then I'll turn them over. You can see how quick these ducks brown. There's already a nice look to them. Just continue to do this for about 10 or 15 minutes until they're evenly coated all around. Then I'm going to come back and flavor them with all of those great flavors of Louisiana. I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to put into this bowl some yams. This is Louisiana yams. That's going to really give a good sweet flavor to the duck. This is some little onions, some little spring or pearl onions that's going to go all around it. Whole cloves of garlic. Whole cloves of garlic, just kind of throw those in. Carrots will give more sweetness and, of course, a nice look to it. And then the coarse chopped celery. And I'm using these. This is little kumquats. Kumquats give the ducks a nice citrus flavor. So I want to add those in as well, and I can put those in. And then I can come back with onions, celery, add just more of anything you'd like into it. I'm going to just put a little bit of that. Now, once this cooks for just a couple of minutes, you can see how pretty all of that is. I'm going to come in and add a little bit stock. I can add chicken stock. I can add game stock, any one of the stocks. It doesn't really matter. And about a bottle of a good red wine. I want to put a nice red wine down in there because this duck will slowly braise with all of these wonderful flavors for a couple of hours. It's going to be in the oven for a couple of hours and just slowly cooking about 350 degrees. You don't want to worry about rushing it. This is a great dish for one of those cold winter days. So once the stock comes to a boil, you can season it just a little bit more if you want to with some of your favorite flavors. Just put whatever herbs you like in here. A lot of people like sage, and hey, throw it in the pot. It doesn't matter to me. Just add whatever you want. I'm going to come in now and put a lid. It's a Dutch oven, so I want to create something that's going to really bake it well. And you want to put it, put that oven top on so that we can hold all the steam and the moisture in, so it'll baste itself as it cooks. This goes into the oven, as I said, 350 for about, somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how old the duck is, depending on how young it is. You know, every one of them are a little bit different. So just test it out. Just start to prick it, and once the legs pull apart easily, it's ready. Now, let me show you what those mallards look like when they come out of that oven. You just feast your eyes on those babies right here. Look at this. Can you imagine just putting a knife right into those breasts? You can come back and put a little bit of purple cabbage or one of the nice colors, and it's sitting on a plate of dirty rice, and Greg and I are going to cook some dirty rice just a little bit later. Boy, isn't this perfect to take home to Daddy. I love this stuff. Great duck. Okay, the next dish I want to do for you, I saw about 5 or 6 people cooking a really nice duck gumbo at the Duck Festival, and everybody has their own idea about what gumbo should look like, and I'm going to get my roux cranked up here. But let's take a look at what I'm going to make my duck gumbo with. This is smoked duck. Smoked duck, I have the smoked breast. I took the duck and cut it into eighths, the thighs, the legs, the breast, and I put them all into the smoker with a little cane syrup, black pepper, and I got all of that nice. I smoked them for a couple of hours, and I'm going to add some smoked andouille, which is the Cajun sausage of Louisiana, and once all of those smoked meats go together, I'm going to finish it with oysters. This is smoked duck, oyster, and andouille gumbo. Now, in my pot here, I'll start off with a dark brown Cajun roux. This is equal parts of oil and flour, and a lot of people who are on fat-free diets eliminate the oil and just kind of toast that oil, toast the flour in the oven until you get that wonderful color. And once the roux gets to 350, 375 degrees, you get this wonderful dark brown roux, and we can add now our onions, celery, bell pepper. Again, there's as many recipes for this dish as there are people who cook it. Believe me, there's a lot of different recipes for the onions, celery, bell pepper going into this roux. A lot of different flavors added to it, but this is my favorite version of the duck and andouille gumbo. Now I've added a little bit garlic to it. I'm going to simmer that around. I wish you could just smell this. If you had smell-o-vision, it would be fantastic. All of those nice flavors are just great. Now I'm going to add some okra because, as you know, okra is a big part of gumbo, and in fact, that's where the name comes from the African word for this little plant here, this little okra plant, guimigambo, and that's where the name of this wonderful dish comes from that okra plant that the Africans brought to Louisiana many years ago. And once that's in, simmer that okra for a little while. You want to smother it in the roux very slowly. And now I can add some of my duck and andouille. I want to put that great smoky andouille down in here. That's from the Germans. The Germans brought that good andouille sausage. And then I can put some of my smoked duck. Boy, I tell you, this flavor coming out of this pot is incredible. Now, of course, I have to add my stock, and I made just a little duck stock with some of the bones. And I'm going to add the stock right into my pot. And you want about, this is a soup, it's not a stew. So you want to make sure that you put enough water in here. Does that pot cook or what? Take a look at that thing, simmering away. That water goes to boiling right away in that hot oven, that hot Dutch oven. And then I'll stir this around. You can see how it becomes a really nice earth color, a nice earthy tone, real smoky flavor. And of course, this is going to have to cook. I would allow this to cook for, oh, gee, at least until this duck gets nice and tender and falling from the bone, an hour and 15 minutes. Again, depending on the tenderness of the duck, just how long does it have to cook. You have to test that out for yourself. That's what makes us all good cooks or bad cooks, whether we know when it's ready or not. But I would say an hour and a half or so is about right. Now, once all of that's in, I would add the rest of my duck. Just kind of put this in. And boy, I tell you what, can you imagine being able to go out into the woods and take from the land just about any variety of duck, geese that you can imagine, game birds of all types in Louisiana, but none more sought after than the wood duck, the teal duck, the mallard duck of Cajun country, especially around Gaydonk, where this festival is held every year. Now, I'm going to come in. Let's assume now that this is cooked for about, well, I guess maybe an hour. I'm going to throw in a little green onions. I'm going to throw in some parsley, because I have to have that flavor in. I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. I can throw a bay leaf in here if I want to. Some people like bay leaf. I'm going to season it with a little salt and pepper, just a little touch. A little bit of my Louisiana pepper sauce. Just put a little bit of that spice in. And then finish it with these nice salty oysters from the Gulf Coast of Louisiana. The oysters will give it a really wonderful flavor. And I also want you to know that in Louisiana, we have a tendency to always marry the meats and the soups and the sauces and marry the seafoods and the game and anything we want to throw into the pot. Any combinations will go right into any Louisiana pot. Very seldom will you see seafoods and game and meats and sausages all mixed together, but we think about it. We don't think about it for 2 minutes here. We throw it all into the pot. Okay, that's done, so I would allow that to cook for, as I say, an hour. I have some already done, so I want you to see what it looks like right here. I have a nice bowl of it. You can see how nice and dark it gets when it's all cooked, and then I'm going to serve it right on top of steamed white rice, just like this. See that? Really pretty, and you see how nice and brothy it is. The rice will, well, what a meal this is. And then you're going to finish it with just a little touch of filet powder, the ground leaves of the sassafras tree, and it goes on after the gumbo is cooked. You don't want that to go on prior to cooking or in the pot. Always throw your filet in at the table. It's a condiment, so you want to make sure that that filet is on the table where your guests can put some in the pot. Okay, now let's take a look at a couple other things I found at the festival. Here I have a little duck ham. Look how pretty that is. That's the duck breast. That's all sliced and ready to go here, and it's seasoned with cane syrup. Here I have duck fajitas. All these nice fajitas sitting here. The duck breast is quickly sauteed in the pan, and it's all ready to go. So these are two things that I would, a little bit different, but look who just walked in, huh? Take a look at my buddy here, Greg. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
How's everything in the basin?
Well, the basin is beautiful now. It's my favorite time of year. The water's low and the colors are beautiful.
Now I know exactly what this is. But tell them.
This is a paddle made out of old cypress, old growth cypress, and there's none of it left. All the big trees were cut down, and an old paddle maker about a mile from my house made this for me. It's very high quality wood, and it's a pirogue paddle.
Yeah, so in other words, this came out in the grain of that cypress. So this is out of one of those big old beautiful cypress trees.
Yeah, you can feel oil in it. Right.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. Well, hey, are you going to give me this?
No,
right?
the old man who made this for me would be very upset if he gave it away. I'll have him make it.
You know, last time you and I were talking, we cooked ducks here today, we were talking about the dirty rice of Louisiana. I want to show all these guys how to cook this dirty rice because I think it's one of the absolutely best dishes in all of Louisiana cooking. And this is, you can stir that one over there. You got that?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get one of these good burner's lid here. And I'm going to go ahead and take my black iron skillet. Dirty rice gets its name from the fact that we cook the livers and the gizzards and all of the things that normally come from game. I'm going to put a little buttery flavored oil into this pot. And dirty rice gets its name because, of course, the rice looks dirty when it comes out of the pot. But we're going to just quickly show them how it goes together. Into the skillet, once the butter is melted, we're going to put a little onions, celery, bell pepper. And there must be a million recipes for dirty rice, huh?
Sure. I learned to cook in a hunting camp myself. I was telling you a little earlier, a brother of mine lives in Washington, D.C., who doesn't cook very much the way we do here. He's Cajun, but he's lost the touch. Called me one day to find out how to cook dirty rice.
Right.
And I gave him my recipe, and he called me back a couple of days later, and he said, you know, I went to grab the cayenne pepper, I grabbed the cinnamon instead. And it turned out so well that people ate 3 or 4 servings. Anyway,
With cinnamon,
it's hard to ruin good dirty rice.
Well, you know, once all the onions and celery go in, then I'm going to add, I've poached the gizzards, and you just want to chop them and get them real nice down into that saute pan. The important thing that a lot of people, I've got it on there, is that it takes a while for that little skillet to crank up, because I have some already cooked, so I wasn't worried about cooking it all the way. But the livers will actually start to saute as they are now, and we'll start to color all of this all of these ingredients to a nice look, and that's what we have in the pan right in front here. I'm going to actually cut this off so we can go to this little pan here, so you can mix the rice right into all of that nice seasoning. Now take a look at what that looks like, and now they know why it's dirty, huh?
At what point did you cut up your livers?
Well, the livers are just chopped into it as it goes, and then you can come back in once all the rice is colored, and then we're going to put a little green onion, a little bit parsley right into it. And I have a bowl of it already made over there so they can get a good shot of it while you and I go sit down. We're going to talk a little bit about the basin. You see this nice big old bowl of rice sitting right here. Really, really nice. And that goes on the ducks or any of those other great wild game dishes. Now, tell me, the basin, I mean, it's most people don't even know what it is. Describe it to me in your own mind.
Well, the Atchafalaya Basin is primarily a spillway for the Mississippi River, a floodway, so that New Orleans and Baton Rouge don't flood. About 30% of the Mississippi's water comes down the Atchafalaya River. So the spillway is enclosed by two levees, about 18 and 19 miles apart. It's about 110 miles long, and it's a very unique ecosystem, environment of bayous and rivers and swamps and cypress trees and that wildlife.
Well, I know I see you have your camera here, and we were talking about all the great photography that you do. And I stole a few of the shots out of your new book, out of your latest book, that probably came right out of the lens of that camera. And I want to show everybody what the basin looks like from your mind's eye. And I want you to tell them what they're looking at as those beautiful pictures go by there.
I have to tell you, this is one of my many cameras. I don't go to my mailbox without a camera.
Well, look at these beautiful shots here.
This is a shot at Lake Force Point. Those are cypress knees at the bottom of the picture and cypress trees in the background, white pelicans in the distant background, and Spanish moss, which is very characteristic of cypress trees in our area. This is the Basin Brothers Cajun Band sitting in one of the biggest cypress trees I know of. It's at Lake Dautrive in St. Martin Parish.
Look at the size of that tree.
That pirogue was made for a movie. A lot of film companies come into the Atchafalaya Basin these days. All right. That's a sunset on Lake Dautrive in the Atchafalaya Basin. All right. This is an area where you can see a lot of stumps because all over the Atchafalaya Basin at this time of year you see stumps of trees that were cut down when
many years ago, right?
Oh, in the late 1800s and early 1900s. This is a tree that remained not cut down because it's hollow. This is at Lake Force Point, and there's a few big trees there still.
Now this is, his looks like a sunrise or
This is a sunrise near Bayou Benoit in the Atchafalaya Basin.
Now all those beautiful cypress trees that we're looking at here, many of those are obviously 99% of them are gone forever, right?
All of the big trees, every tree that was big enough to make lumber and was a healthy tree, was not hollow, was cut down by the lumber companies after the Civil War. And that ended about 1930, when there were no more trees left.
Why was there such an association with cypress in the Atchafalaya Swamp? Why did everybody have to have their hands on it?
Well, cypress is one of the only two trees that will grow in a permanent swamp. Tupelo gum is the other. It's a superior kind of wood. I made furniture for several years out of old cypress, the old-growth cypress. Every house in South Louisiana was built of cypress. Every boat, every barn, every fence, every pirogue, everything.
What is this is obviously thousands of acres. What's the industry that takes place day in and day out in the Atchafalaya?
In the spillway itself, it is 900,000 acres. The crawfishing is the biggest industry. It's the biggest moneymaker. There are, the closest estimate I can find is about 6,000 wild crawfishermen. That is not farm-raised crawfish, but crawfishermen in the basin.
What about the crawfishing industry? Is there still a lot of money to be made in, and how does it work anyway?
It works this way. If a man is willing to work really hard, he can make good money crawfishing. If he's not willing to work as hard, he barely scrapes by. When a crawfisherman is a man who waits for the next season to begin. As soon as crawfish season is over, he's into turtle fishing, hoop netting, catching bullfrogs, but he's always waiting for the water to come up again in December so he can start crawfishing. And the season normally runs from December to about through July.
So they make a really fair living by moving from season to season then in the basin.
It's a great variety. But the unusual thing about making a living crawfishing in the Atchafalaya Basin is that a man and his wife frequently fish together. A man and his sons on weekends, summertime, you know, the rest of America, families split up to go to their various jobs. And here in the Atchafalaya Basin, the Cajuns stick together to make a living.
Now, when we were sitting down having dinner the other day, you gave me a great quote by Faulkner about how we're losing things and how it's getting away from us. Give it to me.
Well, Faulkner lived in the state of Mississippi, and he hated to see the wilderness being destroyed. And he said, when change is happening, unless a wise person comes on in the middle of change and takes charge of it, change can destroy things that are irreplaceable. And that's what happened with the big cypress trees. They are irreplaceable.
Well, I think we have a new, keener sight about it today, and I don't think that that it's going to happen. We're going to continue to watch that basin closely. And thanks so much for your interest in it, and thanks for coming today. And all of you, please come back again as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. And check out the fairs and festivals. We're going to eat some of this dirty rice.
Funding for this program is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Vieux Carré, Zydeco, Atchafalaya, Natchitoches. In Louisiana, you'll say things you've never seen before.
More information on events in Louisiana can be yours at no cost. Call 1-800-36-GUMBO for your free Louisiana tour guide listing festivals, attractions, and points of interest throughout the Bayou State. Chef John Folse's Louisiana Sampler, a companion cookbook to this series, contains the colorful history and culinary secrets behind Louisiana's most exciting festivals. For your copy, send a check or money order for $19.95 to Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Or use your credit card by calling toll-free 1-800-973-7246.